afternoon. My name is Lindsay Blount. I am the Program and Business Manager for Military and Veteran Affairs at William & Mary. I'm also a proud military spouse. My husband just pinned on as Lieutenant Colonel in the Air Force, and we currently live in Williamsburg, Virginia. My husband is based at Langley Air Force Base, and we have two little Air Force kiddos. Caroline is 11, Chloe is 10. Caroline has big dreams of the Air Force Academy and wants to be a pilot, so we're keeping it in the family business. I picked up a degree everywhere my husband brought me across the United States in the last 15 years. Most recently, I got my doctorate at William & Mary 2 years ago. My doctoral research focused on military to civilian transition experiences. And what became clear is that what many of us have been talking about kind of all day is that transition is not an individual event, it is a family transition. While the service member may be taking off their uniform, the entire family, spouses, children, and even extended family navigate that shift right alongside of them. My mom will often say that she feels like she's also transitioning as well. So my research has highlighted, though, that spouses and children often undergo more transitions than the service member does in the life cycle of that service member's career. They navigate these sort of liminal spaces where they're leaving jobs and searching for new ones, moving children between schools, restarting friendships, support networks, reestablishing healthcare providers like we've talked about, renegotiating their roles within the household, and navigating deployment reintegration. For them, transition isn't a single moment, it's a cycle that happens over and over again from the moment they say, I do, or the moment they're born. From both my research and lived experience, there's been some themes that have sort of emerged: identity, stability, and connection. So families feel that ripple effect when a service member's identity shifts. Spouses often carry the emotional labor of helping the veteran re-identify their purpose while managing their own questions of who am I now? Children too navigate identity shifts as they move from becoming military kids to civilian kids. So one of my colleagues is a retired lieutenant colonel. He served 24 years in the military. And his child, when he became a veteran, he was explaining to her, well, now I'm called a veteran. And she said, well, what am I called now? She's not a military kid anymore. What is she called now? My kids were born in the military as well, so they're gonna have questions in a few years when my husband finally decides to retire, what they'll be called as well. What I do like is what's been kind of happening recently is that military spouses, when their service member retires, now we're called veteran spouses. There's not a term yet for kiddos, but I think that sort of helps a military spouse move through that transition and still kind of honors what they have been through during that career. Stability, so frequently relocations, career interruptions mean spouses often sacrifice professional growth. When transition comes, the loss of paycheck and healthcare can destabilize the household. We've talked about that a lot today. And then connection, the military provides that built-in support system. When that goes away, families can feel isolated and unsure where to turn. So the modern military spouse, though, is very different, even in the last 5 years. The pandemic changed how spouses work, how they connect, and how they lead. Research from Blue Star Families and the Association of Defense Communities showed that the pandemic highlighted some key issues, such as access to child care, financial resilience, and community support outside the fence line. Spouses adapted by getting creative. Many learned new skills, launched businesses, homeschooled their children, and created educational opportunities not only for other families, but for those in their communities as well. They went back to school online, changed the trajectory of their careers, and therefore their families' lives. And what has sort of emerged is this new picture of the modern military spouse. Today's spouse is more digitally connected, entrepreneur, a vocal and demanding systems that meet their needs. We've seen that today. I'm grateful for those voices that have spoken up today. They hold louder influence in the service members' retention decisions and in guiding whether their children pursue or turn away from military service. The pandemic underscored their adaptability and resilience, showing that when faced with challenges, military spouses don't just endure, they innovate. Today's spouse is fierce, hardworking, and determined to build identities both as a spouse and a civilian. As this evolution continues, we have to consider how we support the new military spouse and this new military child. Their needs look different than they did even a few years ago, and our systems of transition support must evolve to meet where they are. That's why I believe our support systems must expand beyond the veteran. The VA, DoD, and community partners have made incredible strides. There are currently over 40,000 programs for transitioning veterans. Spouses are often involved in those, but in the sea of goodwill, where do you choose and where do you go? In reality, the entire family needs counseling, career pathways, and peer networks. So at William & Mary, we're working to change that. This spring, we hosted our very first Empowering Military Spouse Symposium. I thought 50 people would show up and 120 spouses came, which was incredible. And they came from all across the country. We had Blue Star Families there, we had Hiring Our Heroes, and a bunch of other incredible advocates for military spouses and their families. We believe that at William & Mary that we are a convener of resources, and I think that's where we're trying to sort of advocate for other community colleges and colleges throughout the country to be those conveners. We can't solve the problems at William & Mary, but we can help get military spouses and their families and veterans connected. In fact, I have to say this quote because we did a survey on what they thought and what they needed, and one of the spouses said, "I thought I was alone and now I feel connected." And I'm from the Hampton Roads area, which is really like in the seat in the military, and most of us live off base, so to find that connection is actually pretty challenging. Looking ahead, I believe we need to focus on 3 key shifts. Transition support should begin the moment a military spouse says, "I do," or the moment that a child is born. It must happen when a new spouse arrives at a new base in a city far away from their family. It must happen when a service member returns from deployment and their children don't recognize them in the same way. It must happen with every PCS as families navigate new jobs, new schools, new communities. By practicing supportive transitions throughout the career, families will be better equipped for the big transitions or separations of retirement. We need to sort of dial it back and think about what's happening in the beginning. So if we continue to practice healthy, successful transitions throughout your entire career, when you get to that big transition, that leaving the military service, you should be able to rely on some of the practices that you learned throughout your career. So normalize family counseling as part of a transition process, not as a crisis intervention, but as a proactive tool. So at William & Mary, our Master's in Counseling program has the nation's only military and veteran track. We have military spouses and veterans that are usually the ones that are getting that master's degree, and then they're going in and they're serving back to their community. One thing that I found in my dissertation research was that the number one thing that military members and spouses wanted when they left the service was meaningful careers, so we're giving spouses and veterans a way to do that through counseling. This model also ensures family can access counseling that truly understands the unique pressures they face. But one program isn't enough. We need more educational institutions across the country to prioritize training those who support the veteran, not just the veteran alone. We need to invest in spouse career development, especially portable careers, but this has to go beyond job fairs. Hiring Our Heroes does incredible work from what I've seen in Hampton Roads, and they have these amazing job fairs, but there are so many spouses that if a spouse got married when they were 18, was a stay-at-home parent for 18 years, and now they're going to go to a job fair, what do they even do when they walk in the door? What does their resume look like? We want to empower spouses that your time 18 years at home, you probably were volunteering somewhere. Maybe you were a key spouse. That's the Air Force term. I don't know the Army term for key spouse. Maybe, and you holding down the fort quite literally for 18 years can translate absolutely into what I believe can translate into a C-suite. So we need to really empower spouses that it's not just about getting the job. We talk a lot about spouse employment, but how are we helping them with imposter phenomenon when they walk in the door at an interview? How are we helping them with interview prep? How are we helping them even just know that all of the experience that they had, they are 100% worth those C-suite jobs, or whatever meaningful job they're going after. And then building longitudinal efforts. So networks of support that don't just stop at the 1-year mark, but continue for years. Transition involves over time. So when you leave the military, that it's not, now I'm done transitioning. Now you have years of trying to unravel everything that you've learned. You went from a very we community to now an I community, and that takes a lot, and the spouses as well. So creating alumni style networks and help families connect to universities, nonprofits, and peers. Employer affinity groups. So in what we're working with at William & Mary, we call it Green Zone Training, where we have, we partner with corporations throughout Hampton Roads, and we go in and we teach them, the civilians, how to have veterans as their employees, or how to have a military spouse as their employees. We're teaching them that if a military spouse, if you know that they're only going to be there 6 months or 2 years, they're going to work hard and change your company probably in the next 2 years. So they're worth investing the time, even if you know they're gonna leave. At William & Mary, our Green Zone training, we make all of our faculty and staff go through it every single year because we have 1,600 dependents at our university out of 8,000, and we have 365 veterans. And they're in these faculty members' classrooms, and they're in my office in Military and Veteran Affairs. We need to know how to be able to talk to them and how to welcome them and make them feel like they belong. The number one question our students get, our veteran students get, is from civilian students is, have you killed somebody? And it's usually on their first day of class. So can you imagine you're sitting in a class with 18-year-olds and they're all turning around asking you that question? And the spouses get it too. I got it when my husband was deployed and I was at University of Massachusetts and they asked me the same question. That's gonna trigger a lot of really big emotions. We wanna be able to teach our students and our faculty and staff and in people and corporations how to interact with veterans in a respectful way and also how to support them as well. And then peer-led spouse groups that are not just about information but emotional support throughout life stages. When families know that someone will be there walking alongside them in the years 2, 5, and 30 years after transition, it becomes less of a cliff and more of a bridge. So in closing, transition is not a finish line. It's a lifelong journey. When we support the family as a whole, veterans, spouses, and children, we don't just ease the challenges of transitions, we unlock the potential of families to thrive and lead in their community. Thank you, and I look forward to hearing from both of you.